Yes,
Yeah.
I can.
Hi from New Jersey. Hi, New Jersey. Hi,
Hi,
Pug
pug
Love
lover.
Darla. That's cute. Hi, everybody. Welcome if you just joined us from Facebook and YouTube. You just waved at me.
I did. I was just going down the list.
We are live on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, and this is the weekly pet roundup. And this week we are discussing pet sitting woes and
Whoa. Yeah.
whoa. But the first thing I want to say before we dig in is this is not a criticism on my pet sitting company. They did a great job. This is more of a kind of like a debriefing for me to share my experience as a pet parent, realizing that I did not set my pets up for success in so many ways this time. And as somebody who used to run a professional pet sitting business for 12 years, I know how to set myself and my pets up for success, but the pet has changed, right? The pet's needs have changed. So this is by no means, and I just want to get that out of the way because I've tagged my pet sitter before and like they may see this and like they did the best they could do under the circumstances. They actually accommodated us early because we had to leave early and they like did whatever they could to accommodate that, which may have been part of the problem. Just like I didn't get to do like intros and stuff. But this is not at all a criticism on their job, their quality of care. This is not a criticism at all. It's really just a conversation about what I learned, what comes next, which I still don't know, right? Like this conversation may help me kind of come to a conclusion, because I have Jessica here to kind of troubleshoot this with me. But this is definitely, I like to keep things positive. And if it was a bad experience and like I was like upset at my pet sitter, this would not be being discussed in a public forum. That's just not who I am. So that's the first thing I want to say. I am not a negative ninny and I am not a Karen.
One of the things that I like to try to remind myself of is that if something is going wrong under me, so like something I am responsible for, I am managing, which I do take my role as like my pet's guardians as kind of a managerial type. Like, yes, I love them, they are family, but when I am working with other professionals, I feel like I'm the person managing those other professionals because they are ultimately my responsibility. And so when I look at any situation like that, I try to remember that whoever I'm hiring can only do as good a job as I have trained them to do, as I am allowing them to do. And oftentimes, especially like in an actual workplace setting, I can just be like such a micromanager. Like I know that about myself and I try really hard because I do try to look at it as what could I have done differently? What can I do differently moving forward? And I think that's exactly where you're at.
Yes, exactly. It was like the perfect storm, right? So I went to, and no pun intended.
No pun.
Right.
Two perfect storms. Back to
three perfect storms. There were 3 perfect storms. There was Hurricane Helene. We were supposed to leave on Thursday, and because of Hurricane Helene, we left 2 days early. And so the Friday before we left, the pet sitters, both of them, oh, sorry, Karen. Karen Mango. Karen Mango. Okay, my apologies.
Yeah, I feel like that is such an attack on women in general. Yeah, but I get it. Like some things just kind of work their way into that.
I'll do what we say in Spanish. We actually say Yolanda, and we say it joking because all Latin women are very vocal. So I understand, and I will definitely make an effort to not say Karen, but I usually don't use it in my lexicon. It's just kind of because it's colloquially used. I just threw it out there, but agreed. I won't be using it anymore. My apologies, Karen. I don't think all women are Karens, and I think that we're all bitchs when we speak out, no matter what our name is. So definitely with you on that. Okay, so anyway, back to the story. I left earlier than expected. The pet sitters were new. We had the same pet sitting company since 2018, 19, and it was always great because the pets already knew this person. His name is Kevin and he's great, but he left. And I, I just, because I have this established relationship with the um pet sitting company, I just stayed with the pet sitting company. And, the two pet sitters who came this time are the owner and one of the like longest standing employee contractors, because they don't do employees. So experience, years of experience. I had no reservations. We hit it off great, talking when they came over for like a little meet and greet. That was Friday before we left. We were supposed to leave a week later and it was supposed to be like all under control. I had been packing slowly. I personally am a very type A personality. So I use my time wisely. I like start packing 2 weeks ahead. Sometimes I repack if I feel like I've packed too much. So I'm very type A when it comes to that. And, and I know that like rushes and stress, like the pets pick up on it. So that's not my go-to. But then Hurricane Helene starts going toward Orlando, and that's where we're going. And we were going to Orlando to celebrate my husband's military retirement, 21 years in the US Army, that I had planned a huge shindig with his whole family in Orlando at Shades of Green. Shout out to Shades of Green. It is an amazing resort in the Disney World area, and it's on Disney property. Fantastic, so much fun. But like, he had to be there. He is the guest of honor. So the hurricane was supposed to hit on Thursday, which is when we were traveling in, and we were able to switch our flights and leave earlier. So the night before, we still don't even know if we're leaving. We're up till midnight, packing up, 3 days earlier than we expected, getting the kids ready to go to school the next day, finishing up everything we had to. Thank you, Pug Love Darla. I will pass on your thank you for his service. But he obviously was, expected to be there. So we did everything we could to get there in time. While we were doing that, we were also stressed because like it was early enough that we didn't know where the hurricane was going. So we were like, are we flying into a hurricane? Like, are we dumb enough to fly our family into a hurricane? So we were stressed. And I know that the pets could feel that. And a little bit about my pets. I have a cat that is super cool, super easy, really chill, friends with everybody. So my cat, like, and he's young. So like, the younger the pet, the more adaptive they tend to be. Then I have a new addition, Satchmo, who honestly did fantastic, which is so weird because I thought he was going to be the one that was most stressed because he had just arrived like not even a month before. And I wouldn't have taken him in that early, but it had to happen because where my mom was selling her house and he couldn't be there because he's like reactive. And so like we had to like kind of precipitate his move here because of that was happening in Florida. So he comes in. I know that I'm about to leave. He and Kira have lived together, so I wasn't worried about them getting along, but the cat and him had never been around each other. He's never been around cats, so I was worried about that. But he did beautifully. As it's always like, as much as we know about our pets, there's no way of predicting like which one will suffer the most. And I could predict that my separation anxiety girl, Kira, would not be happy, but that's why we do like pet sitting in the home. That's why we do like supportive supplementation and all that stuff. And it was something that we planned completely. It was everything was in order. I had the trazodone from the vet. I had the CBD dog health calm. I had the calm treats from WinPro Pet. We have Alchemy Pet herbal tincture. We have everything that you could think of. The good food, the good stuff. Everything was in order. And long story short, none of it helped because the second we leave, Kira starts peeing and pooping all over the house. And what's really interesting is we know she has like excess acid probably. She's always kind of thrown up if she didn't eat. Like if she goes too long between meals.
Bile.
Yeah. So it's like a small little bit of vomit. It's bile. It's not that big of a deal. I mean, it happens mostly when she's nervous about something, right? Like if there's a transition or whatever. So like we know this, and we had just done a senior panel. We had just gone to the vet before we left, and everything was clear. Everything was wonderful. The vet found no issues, no elevated liver, no elevated anything. So like we were given the clear that she was healthy enough, but obviously us leaving, and it wasn't even like the length of it. It was from the second we left. She went completely, like just like colitis, IBS, whatever you want to call it, right? Like just upset stomach. And then what's really weird is the peeing. The peeing is very unlike her.
Yeah.
She has never had an accident in the house. And Sasha was crated between visits, so we know it's not him. And the cat he had 3 litter boxes to choose from, and he was using them perfectly. So why she was peeing, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
There could have been storms, which add to her nervousness. She's also a dog that it doesn't need to storm or lightning. She actually feels the barometric pressure change, and she's shivering, like she's trembling. So they came 3 times a day. My biggest thing was she needs a walk a day, at least one walk a day. She was stressed when we left. She was immediately stressed because we were gone. She has her existing stomach issues. Our trip was planned over fall break because we have 2 kids who are in school, and we can't travel outside of that because they're super strict. If you don't have kids, attendance is such a hot topic, and like they will not let them do like extracurriculars if they don't have like really good attendance. Like it really, and it comes down all to funding, because if they have bad attendance records in the school, the state won't fund them. So they they come down on the kids and the parents. And I do agree that attendance, like you missed 5 days of school, you missed a lot of school, right? So it's kind of those things where it is what it is. So I planned this trip over fall break. What does that mean? That the pet sitter is busiest, right? The pet sitter is super busy because everybody's traveling around this time. So they don't charge by time, they charge by visit. When I ran a professional pet sitting company, we did 100,000 pet sits in the time that I owned that, more than 100,000 pet sits in the time that I owned that. So I have a little bit of experience when it comes to this topic.
Yeah.
We charged by time. So we would go to see the client and we would say, like, what are the tasks you expect me to take care of, right? Like, you want me to walk your dog for 20 minutes. You want me to feed them all. You want me to wash the bowls. You want me to scoop the litter box. You want me to, clean around the litter box. You want me to take the trash out. So that's going to be like 45 minutes, right? And we would charge accordingly. This company doesn't really do that. They kind of come in, they do like the basics, and they go to the next client. They can't do like these in-depth visits, which is what my pets and I are used to. So I would have paid for more time. I would literally have paid twice as much as I paid, because they are very cheap, and I think they need to charge more to begin with. So I would have literally doubled it. They told me they couldn't like do more than what they were going to do.
Yeah.
I do think that had she had more time, more like somebody sitting down with her and like just chilling with her, she may have been more at ease and may have like bonded with the new sitters better. But that just isn't part of what they could offer me. And they were very clear about that before I left. So again, this is not any kind of, any kind of dig on them whatsoever. And I don't have family here. I don't have family here. So it's not like I could call like my mom, my sister, somebody like, hey, come sit with Kira for a while in the evening. I couldn't do that. I don't have anybody. So I'm on my trip that is itself stressful, because we're literally in a hurricane the first week, and then we're traveling around Florida the second week, and then the third week we're in another hurricane, and I'm getting texts being like, Kira is throwing up, Kira pooped all on multiple rugs, which I have washable rugs, so that was like the least of my concerns. But this is really outside of her character. Like, this is not something she does unless she's in dire straits. So like, I know she's suffering. And then also she, like Chris, when my husband got home, I left Orlando to go to Cleveland for the CFA cat show and expo. But Chris came home with the kids, and he found pee on the floor that had like somewhat dried, and like again like something that I don't think the pet sitter knew that she was peeing, but this was like the last day, maybe there was a storm, I don't know, she peed. And I'm assuming they were letting them out. They came over every 3 times a day, so they were letting them out enough. And they were here early in the morning. It's not like they were strolling in at 10. They were here at 7:30, and she doesn't really go out before that usually. And they were here at like not like till like 8:30 the night before, so it wasn't even 12 hours, and she's used to going 12 hours. It was really just the anxiety that was getting to her, that was like that panic. And she has separation anxiety. It's one of the reasons I got Van Gogh, because I thought she was going to enjoy being an only dog, and she did not. She hated it, and I'm not able to take her everywhere I go with me. So I was like, okay, we'll get her a pet. Now she has another pet, but again, I wonder how having Satchmo here even made it worse, maybe, like it wasn't necessarily a good thing, because she's always watching him over her. She doesn't trust Satchmo. Satchmo is not, Satchmo is an unpredictable dog. He's a snack. Like the reason I took him in is because my sister has a soon to be toddler, and like he is not the dog you want with a toddler. So that's why I took him in. He has an off energy, like you just never know. Like I pet him now, and he wants my pets, but I worry that he's gonna snap at me. That's the kind of dog he is. And when they eat, I need to sit with Kira now, because she like kind of is like watching him to make sure he's not taking her food. So I don't know that his presence helped as much as, you know what I mean? Like maybe it was just another like uncertainty about him being here.
Yeah, like there was no buffer. You weren't there to, yeah.
So I think it just was like, again, the perfect storm. And again, everything that could have been done was done under the circumstances. What I wanted to do was do like a few dog walks before we left, so that they could meet outside of me being there. But we left early. So like those days that they would have come in for like the trial walks, we were already gone. So they were just like thrown into pet sitting my pets. They were females, so it's not like they were like around a strange man, because I know a lot of pets sometimes don't bond to strange men as easily, depending on just like their sensitivity. It's not necessarily due to trauma, but just because like of the voice or whatever. They're both like petite women, completely like non-threatening personalities, very educated in pet care, very experienced. So they couldn't have done anything different, I don't think. The reality is, I think Kira needed more time, not just for tasks, but for like chilling, like being in the same room with a human is all she probably needed. And she didn't get it. So moving forward, unfortunately, like I don't know that we're going to be able to take these trips, like long trips anymore. And I've never been a big long trip person. But the military kind of doesn't give you a choice sometimes. Like when Chris leaves for 6 weeks at a time, I might go see my mom for 2 weeks because I'm alone with the kids or whatever. And like I've had to do that. And again, we always pay for exceptional care. This is the only professional pet sitting business in El Paso that is an established business. And while they're super affordable, and I tip them and all that, we didn't skimp on care. We didn't do anything wrong. I do still believe that the only way my dog is going to be comfortable is in her own home. I don't think that a boarding situation would have been any better. I think it would have been worse. I don't think that going to another person's home would have been helpful at all. Even I do think that like if you find a pet sitter that takes pets into their own home and your pet responds to that well, I think that's a step above boarding for me. And I love that, that somebody's there all along, if there's an emergency overnight, like you're in somebody's home, so they're there with your pet. I do like that, but I don't think that would have helped her either. And I just think that moving forward, the trips have to be shorter and the care has to be longer. So like we're talking like somebody who comes in in the evening when she's due for dinner and like stays the rest of the night. And like
Yeah.
my big challenge there is that in El Paso, there's no licensed professional pet sitter. And I mean licensed as in like a business that is licensed in our city. That has insurance or bonding that does that service. And I know why they don't do it. It's because most pet parents around here are not me. And they're not going to pay what I'm willing to pay for that service. But I'm only willing to pay that amount for that service if it includes insurance. I will never allow anybody to pet sit my pets or provide any kind of service when I'm not in my home if they are not insured. Like that is a recommendation I have for you as pet parents, and it is a standard that I have for myself. And I definitely feel like I'm kind of between a rock and a hard place just because I don't know that I'm going to find that here.
Yeah. I mean, there's only one logical solution to all of this, and that is for you to start up your pet sitting business again.
Never again. Even though if somebody in El Paso wants to start a business like mine where you have employees and training programs and stuff, I would be happy to I would gift you all of my paperwork, my employee manual, my training. I had like a 7-day training protocol. I had online training, on the job training. We had virtual training. We did it all of it. We did it right. That's why we were one of the best pet sitting companies in the country. We won awards for that. And the only reason I closed it is because I was running it remotely for 5 years when the pandemic hit, and I knew that I couldn't go. I wasn't willing to go back to our service area and save it. I was very happy here in El Paso. I was hoping we could stay, and closing it just made the most sense at the time. But obviously, I've been spoiled. Like my employees used to take care of my pets. So like,
right.
and I literally did the background check on them. I knew what their credit score was and what, their traffic history was. So like I
Yeah.
had zero, and I had insurance. So I had zero concerns about them sleeping in my house. But I don't have that anymore. And so again, Kira's 13 and a half. So I feel like it's come to the point where I need to just kind of lay low a little bit for her.
Yeah. I mean, that's as hard as a realization as that is. I totally get that. Um, Even this past summer, knowing that my husband was going to be here while I was traveling, and also knowing that Romeo had osteosarcoma, I was like, there was a part of me that was like, I don't know if I can leave him. Even though it's not even like a pet sitting issue,
Yeah.
right? Like my husband was here, but um, just the idea of something going wrong and me not being there, because that's, when they're older, when they have some sort of disease, when something is like that is going on, you always have that in the back of your mind that's like, but I'm the only one that can really manage this, right?
Yeah, exactly. Well,
Yeah.
and the reality is like Kira is such a good dog, like
Yeah.
outside of her separation anxiety. She is such a good dog, and she has separation anxiety. We got her when she was like 8. Okay, so like this is not a dog that we've had forever. She can't.
Mhm.
She was like handed off from owner to owner.
Thank you. Sorry.
No, you're fine. She was handed over from owner to owner, like by the time she got to us, she had multiple homes. And
Yeah.
she's a border collie mix, even though I did her DNA, and like Aussie Shepherd came out number 1, Aussie Shepherd and Lab. And no offense to any Aussie Shepherds out there, because I follow Sadie the Aussie, and I know her
Uh-huh.
personally. She's here in El Paso, and I adore that dog. And she is the most perfect specimen of what an Aussie should be. But I have also cared for some Aussies that are so intense and so neurotic. And so I've always said that I have 2 breeds that I would not want to have: Aussie Shepherd.
Instagram is agreeing with you.
Aussie Shepherd. Instagram's like balloons for the Aussies.
Yeah.
Aussie Shepherd is one I would never have, and Schnauzer is another one I would never have. And did you see the new dog I have?
Yes.
He's a Schnauzer
He's a
mix.
schnauzer. Yeah.
So be careful what you say because the
Yeah.
universe is always listening. But
Yeah.
I mean, Kira looks like a border collie mix. Like there's a border collie, literally a purebred border collie around the corner, and they look like twins. So I'm not sure genetic testing how right you are, but she does have that kind of like that insane sensitivity that Aussie Shepherds and most sheep herding dogs have,
Yeah.
where they're very sensitive to changes. They're very kind of hyper aware of their environment. And that doesn't always translate to a great pet because, you know, not everybody can exercise an Aussie an hour in the morning and an hour in the evening, right? And the friends that have Sadie the Aussie, shout out to Missy. I see them walking her constantly in the neighborhood, like constantly. So they know she's a therapy dog. They work with her. They take her places. She goes to hospitals. The reason I know her is because her owner's mom is in the same assisted living community as my grandmother, and that's how we met because she does therapy work there. So that dog is like doing a job that's very important every day. Kira, not so much. I mean, she's 13 and a half now. I walk her every day. Like I will not change that. I know she needs more longer walks. She's also 13 and a half, so she's more mellow now. She used to get daily dog walks when she was younger from our professional pet sitter. When my kids were born, we always did dog walks so that they could get the attention that they needed. So we've always met her needs, but like her needs are becoming a little more marked now, and her separation anxiety is getting worse. So like we went to a Locomotives game. I posted a picture of a bat with the kids, and it's a bat. I don't know why the mascot's a bat, but it's a bat. It's the soccer team locally. And we were gone for like 3 hours, but it was storming. And like she was in hysterics the whole time we were gone. And so now I think we need to make more sacrifices for her. I really do. Like, I think it's gotten to the point where like when you have a baby, you're like, oh, I'm not going to that because the baby's not going to be happy. The baby's going to be crying.
Right.
It's kind of like when you have either a puppy, a kitten, or a senior aging pet, it becomes that where you're like planning your life around that pet and their comfort and their needs. And I think we've entered that stage with her where she still looks super healthy. She's still very healthy. Blood work is perfect all the time. Teeth look great. You know, no issues, knock on wood, because we adore her and we never want to say goodbye. But it's more about her mental state than it is about her physical health.
Yeah.
And who knows, maybe her hearing's starting to go, maybe her eyes are starting to go, maybe her mind's starting to go, you know? And I guess those are really much harder to kind of assess.
Well, and I can imagine for even the most well-adjusted animal, like the most confident, they're totally fine, they're totally healthy, they're young, they're happy, they're, you know, not like having even a couple of days where all they're getting is a walk here and being fed there. I mean, that's not like mentally that, because dogs already have this kind of like ingrained thing in them where it's like you walk out the door and they don't know that you're coming back. You know what I mean? Like their life is inside your four walls.
Yes.
And we as humans really forget that. Like we have this, we can go to Marshall's, we can go get dinner out, we can go meet our friends, do whatever we want. But they already don't know, like, you're walking out the door, are you ever coming back? And we try to reassure them, but I'm sure even the most well-adjusted dog is like, I wonder all the time. You know, they're going to be looking out the window, waiting at the door. Like it's going to be hard on even the most well-adjusted animal.
Yeah. And a lot of times from my experience as a pet sitter, the first couple days, they're kind of okay, right? Like they're kind of like, okay, this is cool. Like fun person coming in to give me treats and take me for walks, and like it's all good. And then it's like it starts kind of like getting too long.
Yeah.
It starts getting it
okay,
starts getting like, okay, are they ever coming back?
like for real though, like
Yeah,
what
yeah,
actually
like
is going on here?
exactly,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah,
Whereas sometimes I used to take dogs into my house, and the first 2 days in my house, they were really stressed out because they were like, why am I here? And
right.
then 2, 3 days in, they were like, this isn't so bad. So
Yeah.
it's like any change at the beginning, it's kind of like I'm observing. This isn't that big of a change, so it's cool. But now it's like this change is lasting too long, or this change is abrupt. Oh my God, I'm freaking out. And then I start to like kind of relax. And I honestly feel like had they had like, had I had the ability to extend the visits and like had them, because I mean, I remember doing, 3, 4 visits a day for pets and like
Mhm.
wearing them out. They would sleep. They wouldn't even notice we were gone until we came back. But it's also about getting that like engagement, that playtime, that like, and
Your
I don't think my dogs got that. I don't think my
your
dogs got that.
mobile has Jay's attention.
You love it. Next time I go to Madrid, I'm getting you on. It's from a museum in Madrid. I didn't even see Jay was here. Hi.
Yeah, but then adding the
There's a kitty
separation
cat. It's this kitty cat and this
and the
kitty
white
cat. Oh,
ones.
you can't see
Yeah.
it. You can't see it. Yeah, you
There you go.
can.
There you
Hi. And then there's a little gray one. And they're chasing a little red ball.
go.
You see? How cute is that? My mom got it for
It's
me in
art.
Madrid.
It's art. Oh,
I love it so much. I used to not be able to see it on my episodes, but now I've like made it so that you can see it, and it is a little distracting. But I kind of like it. I kind of like it's like a little Easter egg. What is it they call it? The Easter
yeah.
egg that you like can't really
Easter.
tell, but it's there.
Yeah.
I might put some other stuff back here to see if people are paying attention. But yeah, I hate to say it. I think we've entered this new stage. And honestly, I'm exhausted. My kids are exhausted. I've been traveling too much. The whole trips to Florida every summer are getting really old and expensive. So this is just like a really good reminder that like there's nothing wrong with staying home for a while.
Yeah, and having like you're in a position where if you now, especially now that Chris is retired, if you need to go somewhere, you have that conversation about, okay, you're going to stay home this time, or if he needs to go somewhere, you're going to stay home this time. That like back and forth and so, having that support.
Yes, for sure.
Is
The only thing
important.
is my husband is not as good about this is funny because I always say this about whether it's my pets or my kids. Like when I'm in charge, it's like the 4 seasons, right? Like it's the 4 seasons of care. Everything is done right. There's attention to detail. There's thoughtfulness. There's like surprises and little like moments that you didn't expect because mom like bought you a little something or left you a little treat or picked you up with a little something. Okay. My pets too. My pets know that I'm not doing anything in the morning. I don't care what the weather's like, but I'm taking them for their walk first. They know that I'm not going to forget to feed them. They know I know exactly the way I zhuzh up their food is a certain way that they like it. And when my husband's in charge, I liken it to like a Red Roof Inn, right? Like it's a place to lay your head, but they're not going to go above and beyond. You're lucky if, there's no hair on the shower floor. So I liken it to that. And so even when Chris is in charge, Kira's not that keen on it. Kira wants
Oh,
me. Kira
yeah.
sleeps with me every night. And if I go to the bathroom, she comes with me. And now I have 2 dogs coming with me to the bathroom because the Schnauzer also has imprinted on me now. He imprints on everybody, whoever's feeding him. So he imprints
Oh,
on he imprinted on me and Chris when we first found him in Louisiana. Then he immediately imprinted on my sister, wouldn't talk to any of us, wouldn't look at any of us, growl at us if we tried to pet him. Then my sister like had her baby, so my mom's over there helping with him, and now he can't stand my sister. Now all he wants is my mom. And now they went to Miami and the same thing happened. My sister was busy with the baby, so now like my mom is his whole life, and now he moved here and he's like, I don't care about anybody else, this is my lady. So
yeah.
he's very self centered and self-serving, and I am his everything. So I cannot go anywhere without him. I like if I forget something downstairs, they're all coming downstairs with me, and then they're all coming upstairs with me, and they have no idea where Chris is, and that's fine by them. So it's a matter of me. And like me being traveling is also affecting my kids. So,
Yeah.
it's starting to get to the point where this year all I've done is travel, which has been really fun. A lot of it's been with my kids. A lot of it has been with my kids. But like in November, I have 2 trips, and I really only wanted one of the trips. But the other one is going to Miami to help my mom move. She's moving out of her forever home into her retirement home. And, I'm helping her move. And so it's a lot of work for her. And she's asked me to help her, which obviously I'm happy to do. She hasn't moved in 22 years. So I feel like it's okay if I go help her, but like, I'm worried about Kira. And so what I do want to do is while I'm gone, I'm going to hire the pet sitter and have them come walk her, not pet sit, but like Chris will be busy with the kids. There'll be a lot of stuff going on. So I want to make sure that we maintain the relationship just in case we do go for like a weekend somewhere where I feel like it'll be much more manageable. So we'll continue the relationship. But like, I know that this was a huge reminder that, one, like you said, training, there was no time to train because we left. So like when I got home, guys, my house smelled like litter. Like the whole house smelled like litter. My husband and my kids didn't notice somehow.
I don't know how you could not notice that. I really don't.
It was in the vent. So in El Paso, we have a 2-story house, but in El Paso it gets so hot that most houses, especially 2-story houses, have 2 AC units, one for each floor. And they're on the ceiling, which is weird. But so the smell was so bad downstairs that it had seeped into the air filter upstairs, completely different unit.
Yeah.
And so at 9 o'clock at night, I had just gotten back from CFA. I'd just gotten back from Cleveland, the CFA International Cat Expo. And I'm like getting in bed and I'm like, ooh, oh my God, it smells everywhere. It's like not just where the litter box is, it's everywhere. Nobody had emptied the litter robot receptacle. They were scooping the other litter boxes, which rarely get used because Vango prefers the litter robot. He just likes it. And that's what he uses more often than not. And so people like Chris spent the weekend, like, because he knows he doesn't have to scoop the litter robot. So he was like scooping like the one time that he used like one of the other we leave extra litter boxes just in case something doesn't work with the litter robot. Our pet sitter can like just empty it, throw it out, and like leave actual, so we leave 3, including the litter robot, for one cat. But nobody had thought to like remove the tons of junk in the drawer of the litter robot. So my whole house reeked. And then Chris said that when he got home, like the pet sitter had done their best to like clean up. But again, this pet sitter is not set up to like where at the Wag Pack, if I had gone to a home and there was a ton of like accidents, I would have cleaned them all up. I would have billed the client for extra time, right? And I definitely would have been late to my other pet sits, but I would have built in time for that because I was charging enough that I could do that. But this pet sitting service is set up really differently than that. So like this is like how they make, this is like when they make their money, like the spring break, the fall break, the Christmas break. That's when they make their most money because that's the majority of what they do is pet sitting. The majority of what I did was dog walking midday while people were working. So it's very different structure. But like they cleaned up as best they could. And I said, all of my stuff is washable. So like, it's okay if it doesn't come out. But I meant like the stain. I didn't mean the smell.
Right. Yeah.
So,
and I wonder moving forward, because how they're set up and that they're coming for this really short period of time. It's very like, got to be in and out kind of thing. If the next time you need them, you say, okay, I understand what your structure is, so I want to hire you for 2 back-to-back every time. You know what I mean?
That's that they wouldn't do it. They didn't have time.
No, well, I understand. It's like this was such short notice.
They don't have time because they're so busy with other clients.
I see.
They didn't have time to do that because I said, I'll pay double. Just stay double.
Yeah.
And they were like, we're so busy. Like they really
Yeah.
are I mean, if anybody is an entrepreneur in El Paso and wants to do it, by all means, I'd be happy to be your mentor. But it's such a weird market because I don't think people value them as much as I do. So like I even told them,
Yeah.
like, you need to be charging twice as much as you're charging, even for what you're doing, and then I'll pay you extra for extra time. But they're scared to make any changes just because, you know, the market here is so fickle, and they're like, oh, I'll just find a neighbor, because they don't understand the value of a
Yeah.
professional pet sitter. They don't understand
Right.
the value of that insurance. They won't understand the value of that insurance until there's a problem, right? And then it's like, oh
Right.
shoot, I didn't know that I had to ask for insurance, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, I think that I feel for them, because that's one of the reasons I would never start my business here. Like, I'm not trying to educate people on the value of the services I provide. And that is a huge part of what a professional pet sitter would have to do here. It's a huge part of what the groomers have to do here. It's a huge part of what dog trainers have to do here. They're like, why am I paying you $100 an hour? Because I had to pay $3,000 for this certification. That's why. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
So no, like it's a market that I don't envy them working in. Obviously, I consider myself a dream client, but they just didn't have time to like accommodate me with
Yeah.
those requests, because they need to accommodate all their clients, and obviously these are long-term clients, so they don't want to like, you know, blow them
Yeah.
off for me, even though I would want them to do that. They're
Right.
not going to do that, right? And I booked early enough, but you know, they want to accommodate as many of their clients as they can. And I always book like 2-3 months out. Like
Yeah.
I really am like a super on it pet parent, but their structure just doesn't allow for what I need. And so that's why, like, I would use them again for sure for dog walking. I want to do that so that they maintain the relationship. And also, like, when I travel next month, like, Chris will need the help because, you know, he's not a mom. He doesn't have that like drive to just keep going and like run around the house and do things. Like, he's going to be like overwhelmed and like paralysis, you know, like decision
Yeah.
paralysis, like which one goes first. So at least I can take like the dog walking off his plate and he can focus on the kids, which is great. Fine. Everybody wins because the dogs love guests. They love it and they love their walks. And then I can win because I know that like my dogs are being walked while I'm not here, and Chris can take something off his plate, which is going to be very full. So it all works out. But, you know, what becomes a challenge is like we were planning on going to Spain for 2 weeks next October. And I'm not going to Spain for 3 days, right? It takes
Yeah.
me
Right.
3 days to get to
Yeah.
where I'm going. So like now it's the hard reality of, as long as Kira's here, I don't think we can go to Spain. And that's
Yeah.
part of being a pet parent.
It is. Yeah.
And that is why I wanted to talk about this, because sometimes it's like, maybe you chose the wrong pet sitting service. I didn't. Maybe you
Hmm.
chose a friend. I didn't. Maybe
Yeah.
you had like an unreliable neighbor. I didn't. I did it all right,
Yeah.
but
And yeah.
it just isn't right anymore for this particular dog. And if it was just Van Gogh and Satchmo, I think they'd be fine. Like,
Right.
I think they'd be fine.
So what happened with the pet? Did he move? Do you know what happened? The
My pet
original?
sitter,
The original one that you
so
had?
no, I think he's staying in their like in their circle. I think he's gonna go with what the owner told me is that he's gonna go to like a boarding facility where he like gets to have like more of a structured schedule, which again, I was a professional pet sitter for a long time. I actually did, before I became just manager of my business, I always owned my business and I hired almost immediately, but I still did pet sits for 7 years. And I will tell you, it's exhausting. Like, it's, you know, you're up at 6 a.m. walking dogs, taking care of cats. Then you maybe have like a lull of an hour or two. Then you're doing your midday dog walks. Then you have another lull. And then maybe you go walk your dogs because your dogs are home being like, where is she?
Yeah.
And then
Right.
you go home and you walk your dogs, and then you have to go, you do your evening visits, and it's like a lot of work, and he's been doing it for a long time. So like, obviously I understand why he needed a transition, why he needed to like move on. And I think it's perfect that he did, you know, call it, because burnout is huge in the pet sitting industry. You know, grief fatigue, compassion fatigue is huge in the pet sitting industry. I know that I used to see him walking these Goldens around, and like that family lost like two at least in the time that I've seen him walking. So like, I know he's lost clients. I know he's like worked really hard. I know he's been really great. You know, Satchmo took to him immediately, which is so funny because my sister was like worried about it because she's like, he's not really used to men, blah, blah, blah. Satchmo never had a problem with Chris. On the contrary, when we found Satchmo, he was covered in like branches that like he was so like matted and stuff, and he had been on the streets for who knows how long. He was covered in branches, and like Chris was the only one that like had the patience to like pull them out. And so like Chris would sit there and like pull the branches out of before we didn't want to take him to a groomer before we did a little bit of like really time consuming stuff because we knew the groomer was just gonna be like, shave it. And we did it very gently, and we wanted to kind of set the groomer up for success. And like he totally like would just like lay there and kind of like look at like my husband being like, watch it, that's, you're getting too close. But he never like hurt him or anything. So we weren't worried about, you know, men necessarily. We were worried more about like strangers. And like the first time Kevin took care of Satchmo, he sent us a picture of Satchmo like sitting on his lap or something. And we're like, what? So he was great. These two women were great. Like and they were very, so one thing I will say is that one of the biggest things for me is communication. And they were super communicative. Even when we were coming back, like in the hurricane, I was like, so we're supposed to be back Friday. They were texting me to be like, what time do you expect to be back Friday? And I said, you know, it's Thursday. It was literally like the night before the hurricane. It was Wednesday night. The hurricane's hitting that night. And I'm like, well, we're supposed to be back Friday afternoon. So in 48 hours. However, we're in the middle of Milton, like right now. So if something happens, here's my mom's phone number. She is guardian. She has guardianship. I like everything over text. And they were like super, you know, super responsive, super, cooperative with me. And it was, you know, it was all really, really great. And I think, and I feel for them because that was stressful for them as well. Seeing a pet in their care, distress, seeing a pet in their care, not doing well is stressful, right? Because especially if they're busy, the last thing they need is a dog to get super sick. Right. You know, that is time consuming and it's concerning. And it's like, you know, what do I do now? And how do I make time to go to the vet? And who do we call? And blah, blah, blah. So I really do think that it was a stressful situation for all of us. My husband shout out to my husband for coming home and like buying one of those spot cleaners and like cleaning the rugs. So the rugs look perfect. I didn't expect us to have so many accidents. So I personally didn't leave an enzymatic cleaner. I left like our usual force of nature, which honestly, like for a little bit of vomit works great. Definitely didn't she's never had this issue before. Yeah. So we don't even own enzymatic cleaners since Titan passed away. So now I know that next time I would need to have something like that for them to use. We did fast Kira for like a day, just like in case it was like, you know, she kind of started to like walk away from her food. So I was like, let's just fast her. Don't feed her tonight. Let's just give her body a break, make sure she has a lot of water, refresh the water fountain, all that good stuff. And we worked together and it was great. It's just, again, the disappointment is not the pet sitter, and we can't hold people responsible for things they're not responsible for. The disappointment is that the reality that it's time, just like my time came with Titan, it's time for Kira to Kira needs us to like lay low for a while for her. And it's not a disappointment in a selfish way. It's a disappointment in like, you know, we're entering a life stage that nobody looks forward to.
Yeah, for sure.
That like senior, sensitive, scared to be alone, kind of losing their faculties. Like that's a really sad place to enter because you know what comes next. And at 13 and a half, she's a big dog. She's 60 pounds. 13 and a half, you just never know if like 2 days later, you're going to have something, you know, pop up. My socks died at 13 and a half, 12 and a half. And it was like from one night to the other, she just got sick and she probably had some kind of tumor or mass. They needed exploratory surgery. We said no to that for so many reasons with socks specifically. But like, I don't think I'd put Kira under exploratory surgery either, but she's so healthy. I don't know. You know, you never know until you're faced with that. decision for that particular pet. But it is sad. Like, it's sad to be like, it does disrupt your life, of course. Selfishly, it's like, oh shoot, we can't go to Spain next year. But you know what? My sister's going to be here all spring, so we'll see her the following year, and or we'll see her whenever we can. And my kids will see Spain will be there.
Oh,
God
yeah.
willing, Spain will be there. And my kids will keep working on their Spanish before we head over. So.
Well, and yeah, our dogs give us so much. Our cats too. They give us so very much that it's almost like the least we can do to just, realize what they need and be there for them as best we can. I mean, obviously things can happen and you might still have to go out of town and but you've learned a big lesson with her on what she can and can't handle anymore. And I mean, I honestly just appreciate that you realize it for what it is, because I feel like a lot of people probably would blame the pet sitter. A lot of people probably would be really upset with, well, why is my dog sick? And not realizing that, stress and their own emotions can play a huge role in what's going on with them. And when they get older like that, I mean, Kim's 11. She's going to be 11 next week, and I'm like, I feel like 11's not that old, but at the same time,
but
yeah.
I feel like you hit 10 and you're like, uh-oh, right? Yeah.
Yep.
Uh-oh. But I mean, Titan was a big dog, about the same size as Kira. When he passed away, he was skin and bones, poor guy.
Yeah.
He was 15 and a half, right? So he was, she has, God willing, 2 good years left, and he never suffered. We had a beautiful aging process. It was difficult. We weren't going to go anywhere for 2 weeks, that's for sure. We were just in Florida. She was left alone for a week, maybe 10 days at the beginning, 10 days at the end. She did fine, but last year we did the same, where she was left alone for about 2, maybe even 3 weeks last year. And like, now she's like, okay, now I've had enough.
Yeah.
Like, I've had enough. Like, I don't want you leaving. And that's okay. I've heard you loud and clear, Kira.
Well, and you have the benefit of Chris being able to talk to her, right?
Oh my gosh, yes. If we have to talk about that at some other point. But yes, my husband likes to think, and I believe him, that he can communicate telepathically with animals. I will say that Kira's not keen on that, though. She's not really big on it. She's that kind of dog. As dumb as it sounds for some people who are not woo-woo, I tried to communicate with her from Florida when I was getting the text, and I was worried about her. And I have a friend, Tim Link, I've attended his seminars on how to communicate with animals telepathically. And I tried, but like, my head is just like a constant wheel of thoughts. So you have to clear your mind. That's my first issue.
Yeah.
I have such a hard time with that. And then I think she's also pretty resistant. So there was no connection. We did not connect from Florida and El Paso, but I did try. It didn't occur to me because, listen, our vacation was far from a vacation. It was a celebration of his retirement. It was a celebration of my nephew's baptism. It was, family time, but it was not a vacation.
Well,
and
yes,
so I forgot to like tell Chris to communicate with her.
You did get some Disney days, though, right? Your kids.
We had the best time. We had the best time. I mean, it's so funny how much of a juxtaposition life can be, and these experiences can be. Because yes, like, we were at Magic Kingdom the day Milton hit, because we had 1 park day left. So it was use or lose, because I'm not going back to use that park day. You know how expensive the flights are? I'm not using that park day. Unless I use it now, I'm not going. So we were like, do we go? It's open till 2. We have nothing to lose, right? Other than if we stayed at the hotel, we were going to be at the hotel longer and more bored by the time the hurricane came to the area. So we went, and Disney closed at 2 that day. And at 1:30, the skies just opened up. And it was not because I'm from Florida.
Uh-huh.
And, everywhere gets nasty storms. DC gets
Oh,
nasty
yeah.
storms. I'm sure you get nasty storms in Austin.
Yep.
I don't know about California. Do you get nasty storms there?
Not so much. I
Yeah.
mean, yeah, not so much. I
So,
mean,
like, the East Coast, the whole East
the
Coast
whole
gets
East
nasty
Coast
storms.
does.
Like, I think Miami's are like almost like, unless it's a hurricane or something like a tropical depression or something, they're kind of quicker than the ones in DC. DC, like we have like a derecho, which is like a crazy thing that like a straight tornado that like
Yeah.
took our power for 7 days. And I don't remember what year this was. It was like 15 or 14. And so I'm used to storms, but like there was something about that storm. And I lived through hurricanes before because I'm from Miami. And I was like, this is not just a storm. Like I was like, we need to go. And we're all like, everybody's like walking briskly to the buses, like, it's about to get real, guys. We were all like on on these rides and like having like a Mickey shaped waffle in the morning, having a great time. And now we're like, and I'm like trying to stay
Oh,
calm
crap.
for the
Yeah,
kids because the
right.
kids are like, what is this? And they're desert babies. They're not used to storms. And
Yeah.
we'd been getting drizzle, we'd been getting sunshine and drizzle and like, but no storms and like the winds going. I'm getting texts from my mom and my mother-in-law being like, there's tornadoes in Fort Lauderdale, there's tornadoes in Fort Myers. And I'm like, so long as there's no tornadoes between here and the bus. And what's really funny is the bus was one of those long buses with the accordion in the middle.
Mhm.
I did not see the bus driver. Like I just got in and I even got in through the back, I think. So I never saw the bus driver, but that bus driver was like Speed Racer. It was like the movie, what was it? Speed? Is it the movie Speed that Sandra Bullock's in? I felt like I was on that bus
Oh my
because that
gosh.
bus driver was like, vroom. She wanted, I think it was a woman. She wanted done for the day.
Yeah,
She did
for
not want, and
sure.
the bus was packed because all of us idiots had been there till the end
Yep.
of the day. And
Yep.
they were like sending like because I guess based on their occupancy, Disney knew like which hotel
How many?
needed the
Yeah.
most buses. And they were like, for the all stars, they were like bus. And we're just like holding on in the bus, like nowhere to sit. And I'm like, we're just gonna get to the room. As soon as we get to the room, we're gonna be safe. But we definitely cut it close. But the kids had such a good time. Like everybody was safe. Disney did an amazing job. Shout out to Disney. The day after, once everything opened up after the hurricane, we actually did get hit by the hurricane. Milton actually did go through Orlando. It did not cause any devastation in Disney itself. We didn't lose power. We were hearing a lot of wind, which is impressive. The if you've stayed at any of the all-star resorts, you know that they're like decorated. Like the one we were in was themed for baseball, so they had like baseball bats on the
Mhm,
on like
mhm.
on the like on the balconies,
Oh, wow.
and you could hear them like moving. I was like, something's gonna fly out. Nothing flew off. There was just debris from the trees. They had the pool cleaned by 3 p.m. Everybody was in the pool the next day, like having a great time. They had Chip and Dale, the characters, ladies, the characters playing with the kids. They were hula hooping with the kids. Goofy came over to play football with the kids. Like it was a dream. Like it was from a child's perspective, like
Uh-huh.
sign me up for every hurricane ever, right? Like from a child's perspective.
Right, yeah.
Noah was like at night, we were like, okay, it's time to go to sleep. We were up to like 11 watching the news, and like he's watching the news and he's like, I mean, how bad is this going to be? Because like everybody seems to be
Yeah,
having fun. We were just at a park and we were
right.
like, just go to sleep. The next day he woke up, he had no idea that there was even wind because he slept through it.
Good
And
for
then now
him.
he's going to be like, oh my God, hurricanes are amazing.
Right.
Like and it's true because he got to go to like all these roller coasters with no lines because like there, it was pretty, a lot of
Mhm.
people canceled their trip, rightfully
Sure.
so. Rightfully so, they did. We just so that I want to end this by saying I was not irresponsible. We tried to leave, but we couldn't. We got to Disney actually a day early, hoping we could fly out the next day. And the airlines were only worried about moving the people who were scheduled on the day of the hurricane. So Wednesday, Thursday, we were scheduled for Friday. So they said, sit tight, little bear. We are not moving you at all. And in order to move, you'd have to pay $2,000. So we were like, okay, we're not going to pay $2,000. We're going to do our best and enjoy this trip that we had planned. And it all worked out great. I even got to Cleveland in time for the CFA conference or CFA convention. It was all great, but it definitely was a learning lesson about pet sitter needs for Kira and
Yeah.
hurricane season and Florida. I'm not doing it again. I'm not doing it
Yeah.
again. My mom's moving out of Florida, so there's really no motivation to go to Florida as often as I've been going. And the next
Mhm.
time I go, it's definitely not going to be during hurricane season. As much
Yeah.
as we had so much fun, it was so stressful. And like
I bet.
it's just like, it's like a layer of stress that nobody wants for a vacation, especially with a 4-year-old and a 7-year-old, right? Like
That's what I was gonna say with the kids, because it's like, okay, you can manage yourself, you can even manage you and your husband, right? But then you have this added, like, am I doing the right thing for my kids on top of everything? That's like, who needs that?
no, and
Who
like
needs-
as much as I love my friends checking up on me, like they were so worried about me, then I'm worried about them worrying about me.
Aw,
And my mom's like,
sorry.
to Miami. And I'm like, no, not you. I mean, you and I talk every day, but like I was hearing from friends that I like don't hear that often from, and they're like, we're so worried about you. How are the kids? Blah, blah, blah. And we also had a traumatic situation when we arrived in Orlando where we found a deceased person sitting on the curb of the
Oh,
airport. That was literally how we started our trip. So it was like
oh my
for the kids, like I'm so happy we ended on like a really high note that they like think hurricanes are amazing because the trip was really freaking stressful.
wow. Oh my
Yes.
goodness.
Did I not tell you about that?
No, you didn't. You
Do
found
you
a
have five
dead
minutes for me
person.
to tell you the
Yeah.
story?
Yeah.
Okay, guys, this is completely unrelated to pets, but we got to Orlando late on the day that we left. We left early, so our plane got in at like 10. We got an airport hotel, just so that we
Mhm.
could all get to bed at a decent hour. We go downstairs to where the arrivals are, and you get like your airport shuttles to the
Mhm.
hotels. We're walking by and we see a very large man, maybe in his 60, 70 range. And it has his head up, mouth open, and he's very yellow. And I'm thinking, oh my God, he's jaundiced. Like, what happened?
Yeah.
And Chris and I, we like kind of we have to walk by. He's on a wheelchair, um one of the airport wheelchairs. So
Uh-huh.
like not his wheelchair. You could tell that it was one of those that's like for the airplanes that is narrow
Right.
and doesn't have like arms. And we're walking by and Chris looks at me and I was like, and like we didn't even say anything to each other. We were just like, and then we start asking people around, like, is he okay? Has anybody called the cops? Like, has we called 911? Blah, blah, blah. And there are like 5 people floating around and everybody's just kind of like, it's not my problem.
Right. Yeah. Oh my
And
goodness.
some gentleman comes up, an older man comes up and he's like, no, it's okay. The police have been called. And he's kind of like, I can tell that he's kind of like shuffling us on because he knows what's happening because of the kids. But my
Yeah.
husband's military, now former military, and he's not going to walk by a person in distress. And he looks at me and he's like, can I help? And I was like, of course.
Yeah.
He goes over seeing if we could provide, because I'm CPR
CPR.
certified. Obviously, Chris has medic training. Like he's not a medic, but he has some kind of training. And so he goes over and like he looks for a pulse. There's no pulse. He starts asking around, like, can somebody help me get him down so we can do chest compressions? Has anybody tried to do chest compressions? Like, nobody is answering our questions. My kids and I are just standing there. My kids are like, is he dead? What's going on? And Chris is like, he just looks at me and he's like, and like he was a very large person. So there was no
Yeah.
way for Chris to move him down to the floor by himself.
Mhm.
And he actually moved his arm and he was like, no, he's too far gone
Yeah.
for chest compressions or for a defibrillator for anything. And as Chris is like pronouncing him dead, the cops like stroll in, like just like 2 cops like walking.
Yeah.
And so the gentleman comes back and he's like, I knew it was bad, but like I was trying to get you guys to go because I didn't want the kids to see it. And I was like, this is their dad. They're gonna see it because my husband's never gonna like walk by a person in need.
Yeah.
Like, they're
Yeah.
gonna see it, whether and like I'm the same way. Like I'm never gonna walk by a person in need and like not even with my kids there. I'm gonna be like, I'm gonna call the cops or I'm gonna do something, right?
Yeah.
So I'm not worried about protecting my kids from reality like that because it's, we were helping. What we did was we prayed together for the person. Like, so like literally right there, they were like, what happened? And we said, he passed away. He's no longer there. They're going to take his body and they're find his family and da, da, da. And we prayed, like we held hands, we prayed for him and, God to welcome him into heaven. Cause my kids believe, in heaven. And I mean, we haven't really done a lot of religious training yet or education yet because here we're Catholic and it starts like at 6. So like Noah just turned 7 and we were waiting for them to come together. So we haven't really, but they talk about heaven. So we said he was going to go to heaven. But the saddest part was that there were people there who did nothing, literally nothing. They were like, not my circus, not my monkeys, that kind of attitude, not my job.
Yeah, well, like and this may be a really silly question, but like, I don't know that I've ever seen anybody in an airport wheelchair that wasn't accompanied by somebody that works at the airport. So
the
like,
second, yes, very good point. I knew, see, you're so astute. We never saw the person there was another wheelchair handler there sitting on the wheelchair, scrolling her phone. The man had been sat there. He had a phone that was still playing videos when my husband like lifted it up to give it to and then he had a little bag of belongings, but they were like a plastic bag, like from a hospital.
okay.
So this man may have, and that's what I told my kids. I said, I feel like this man was terminally ill and maybe coming home for final goodbyes, maybe, because he had literally a bag of his belongings, unless something got stolen, which that could have happened. I don't know. But the second the cops came, they asked my husband, like, so do you have medical training? Like, he was like, he's gone. I already, took a pulse, blah, blah, blah. And they were like, you have medical training? He's like, no, I'm military. Okay, got it. And they were like, where was he alone? Was there no attendant?
Right.
And so we all left being like, what is the story there?
Yeah.
Like, did the attendant leave and go get help?
Right.
Did the attendant go to their manager and say, like, this man is not okay? And then the manager blew it off? Who knows?
Right.
Nobody knows. Like, there's no way of knowing. And like Chris and I, like, that was the night we arrived on our trip flying into a hurricane, leaving 2 days early. The level of stress, my kids would not stop talking to everybody they saw that they saw a dead body.
Oh my gosh.
And of course, people at the resort, because we finally, the next day, we went to Shades of Green and we're like happy and we had a great time. It was really mellow. Hurricane Helene, it wasn't even, like, it was, the pool was open the whole time. I wasn't comfortable putting my kids in the pool just in case, but like there was a lot of wind, but it was fine. But there's people there and we're in the elevator and they're like, we saw a dead body. And we're like, we did. Like, they're not like, most little kids, they're like, okay.
Right. Yeah.
In the summer, actually, we went to my church and there was I had just taken my kids to see where I got my first communion, my confirmation, where I got married. Chris and I got married. And there's just happens to be a funeral. So they saw a coffin and they went home and told my mom, we saw a dead body. And I was like, you did not see a dead body. You saw a coffin. Right. And you saw a family grieving their grandmother and they saw her picture and it was beautiful. They saw the pallbearers, they saw everything. And this time when they said they saw a dead body, they were actually right. They did see a dead body. And it was a really sad thing. Chris and I, we didn't really speak about it because like when you're traveling with your kids, you don't have alone time, right?
Right.
So we didn't really talk about it. Even for the hurricane, we were like texting each other in the room, like, okay, what time do you think it's going to hit? Like, do you think we have time to go get pizza? Blah, blah. But he and I, like, over a meal, we were like, I've been looking at the news to see if they covered that incident, and they hadn't.
Yeah, I bet. Especially with the hurricane, there's just too much else to
Exactly. It was not a slow news day, for sure.
Yeah, we're like a month away from the presidential election. Like, there's no way.
Exactly. There's no way. But like, we were like hoping that we would get like some information on this person. Of course, my heart goes out to any family that person had that, found out that that's how their loved one passed, but at least we did all we could to like, make sure that he was okay. And that's what I told my kids, like in the darkest moments there's always the helpers, and like you can know that your
Yeah.
mom and dad are always going to be helping no matter how hard or no matter how scary. Like we're the kind of people that help, and that is something that hopefully you guys will do as well in the future. And there's always helpers, and that is what we focus on. But it was definitely like this trip, when I tell you I'm emotionally exhausted, it's an understatement.
Well, thank you for catching us up.
And if you have any questions about pet sitters, like I still think, I don't want this to sound like I'm criticizing pet sitting. It's literally my job is to like, I'm a pet sitting industry advocate. Like I love the pet sitting industry. I love pet sitting. The services are so valuable. This is not to say that your pet will not do awesome with pet sitting, because I had a dog that went to boarding and she had colitis so bad we had to come back from our trip. So this was a long time ago. This was Bachi, my first adult dog. But so these things can happen in any boarding or pet care situation. But if you do want to find a professional pet sitter near you that you can discuss these things with, like how long are you going to stay? Like, are you insured? Blah, blah, blah. There are two websites I recommend. It's petsit.com and petsitters.org. That is the petsitters.com. I'm sorry, petsit.com is the Pet Sitters International, and petsitters.org is the National Association of Professional Pet Sitters. I was a member of the National Association of Professional Pet Sitters when I had my business. I was on their board of directors. I cannot say enough good things about that organization. PSI is just as wonderful, just as valuable. I recommend both because not everybody's a member of both. So just because one is a member of one and not the other doesn't mean that they're any better than the other. A lot of us were both, but I couldn't be on PSI because I was on the NAPS board. So like that was kind of like a requirement for me. But if you want a pet sitter, if you want to discuss these things, if you are considering pet sitting and you now because of this conversation you have concerns, talk to your pet sitter, ask them the questions, ask them what happens, leave enzymatic cleaner like I did not. But don't be scared of the services. Just find a professional pet sitter that meets your pet's needs, that meets your budget. And it is hard. It impacts your ability to like travel. It impacts your budget, right? Because we spent a lot of money, on pet sitting for 2 weeks, obviously, even though this particular pet sitter is very affordable, it still adds up. And in some areas, you're going to spend triple what I spent. So, make sure you're getting what your pets need. Make sure you are recognizing when your pet needs you home, which is where like really what this is about, is recognizing when your pet is not going to be a good candidate for the pet sitter, not so much the pet sitter for your pet, but your pet is not a good candidate for their care because all they want is you.
Yeah. I don't think I could add anything better to that. So,
all right, guys. Thank you again. And thanks for listening. Thanks for joining us. And next week, I was thinking we could talk about the PER Act, because I'm sure you have a lot to say about that.
I do have a lot to say about that.
So if you're cool, I'd love to hear your insights on the PER Act. If you haven't heard about it, I did share it in stories today. The two crazy cat ladies, Jay and Adrian, they shared it in their email blast this morning. So there is information out there. It's making the rounds. And because we like to do media and weekly pet roundup, the new stuff that's happening, we will cover that next week.
Sounds good. You guys have a great rest of your week.
Awesome. Thank you, guys.
Bye.
Bye.